Blog Talk Radio.
93. County 23, I'll give you a corrected address. So we do have a fire in a one-story ordinary. Looks like it's about 40 by 120 to 125. The County 23 We'll get to traffic control. Squad 5, Squad 5. We'll go to 273, 273. We'll go to Battalion 18, 18th Battalion. We'll go to 273, 273.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fire Engineering Talk Radio and another installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I'm Tom Merrill. Glad to have you with me on this rare Wednesday evening show. It's not usual that I do a night other than Tuesday night, but today is actually Wednesday, August 22nd, 2018. I had to do some switching around, just a lot going on in my personal life. Got to move a daughter to college down in North Carolina. And I also had some official fire department business to take care of. I'm a fire commissioner up in New York State area, and we're working on our budget right now. And we had a meeting last night and meeting next week when I was actually supposed to be on. So lots of meetings, lots of discussions, and some family things going on as well. So a great big thank you to Chief Doug Klein, who graciously volunteered to swap with me. And his show, the Fire and Training Podcast, which normally would be airing this evening, is now going to be on what was supposed to be my date, which is Tuesday, August 28th. So if any of you have tuned in tonight hoping to hear Doug Klein, he will be on Tuesday the 28th. But I invite you to please stay and listen in with me tonight. And to all my listeners, I want you to also give Chief Klein's show a great a listen to if you haven't done that. His show, Fire and Training, is certainly a great podcast. It's one of my must-listen-to ones that I download on a regular basis. So thank you very much to Chief Klein for doing that for me. Hey, I got a few housekeeping items to go over. I've got just a short list of things to talk about that I think are important enough to bring up, and maybe you can jot down and put on your calendar or put on your to-do list. But as you know, a lot of times I talk about the great programs that the National Volunteer Fire Council offers, and I highly encourage members to become members of the National Volunteer Fire Council as well as your volunteer department because they offer so much great material, great training, and they got an online course that's coming up, presented by a good friend of mine, Chief John Murphy, he's among other things, he's a lawyer, and he's got a great presentation that he's going to be putting out through the National Volunteer Fire Council that is really important in today's lawsuit-driven society, and it's called Laws That Matter, Avoiding High-Risk Legal Events. And it's going to provide a nice overview of free speech matters, social media situation, incident documentation, understanding discrimination, understanding bullying and hazing and how that has no place in our fire service today. And he's going to talk about common ways to avoid common pitfalls and how to apply effective leadership and implement sound department policies and procedures to avoid high-risk legal events in your volunteer department. And there's some great information on that and how you can have access to that through the National Volunteer Fire Council. And if you go on nvfc.org, you'll see some links to it. It's a training program through their virtual classroom, which is just one of the many benefits you get if you become a member of the National Volunteer Fire Council. So I encourage you to do that. I've sat through Chief Murphy's classes in the past. I've had him on the show in the past, and you'll find him a wealth of knowledge and just provide some great information and insight to you all. As a reminder, the month of September is designated National Preparedness Month, and there's a theme this year. It's disasters happen and prepare now and learn how. And it's a great opportunity to make sure you, your department, and actually your community are prepared for a variety of disaster and emergency situations. Of course, the National Volunteer Fire Council has information on that as well on their page. Can tell you how to prepare your department, prepare yourself, prepare your community. They have a lot of information you can download, a lot of information you can distribute to your community. And also, coming up in October, it's not too soon to be thinking of the National Fire Prevention Week, which this year for 2018 has a great theme. Look, listen, and learn. Be aware. Fire can happen anywhere. And the week is October 7th to October 13th this year. And I always encourage volunteer fire companies to not only open their doors and maybe have a community event at the firehouse, open your doors for tours, but to get out in the schools, get out in the community, talk and preach fire safety, discuss fire education, and make your community aware. And all of these types of community events and things you can involve your department with the community are a great way to demonstrate your professionalism, great way to connect with your communities, great way to get out and talk to community members and actively listen. What are they saying? What are they saying about your department? What are they saying about the services they expect from you? And what a great way to demonstrate your professionalism at the same time. Demonstrate the good men and women that you have in your department. And, hey, you never know, you might even get some extra members out of doing something like that, because one way to recruit new members is to actually portray professionalism and show what a great organization you have. And then you might have somebody out there thinking, hey, I want to be part of that. I like how they act. I like how they dress. I like how they interact with each other and with community people. And they might want to volunteer, and you never know. So please give it a thought, but don't disregard Fire Prevention Week, disregard National Preparedness Month. Great information is out there. Of course, the NFPA has all sorts of great information and material you can get as well for fire prevention season. So gear up for it, get ready, and get your department involved. And hey, folks, also start making plans now for attending what I consider one of the greatest fire conferences in the world, and that, of course, is FDIC, Fire Department Instructors Conference, in 2019, again in Indianapolis, Indiana, the great city of Indianapolis. And I am so honored to again be selected to present at FDIC next year. And again, that'll be the week of April 8th to April 13th. And it's going to be here before you know it. And, again, I'm so honored to have been chosen. I'll be presenting my class again, my 4-hour class, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Look forward to maybe seeing you there. And I got to tell you, I'm glad it's a 4-hour version. I do offer it in other lengths, but for the last 4 years now, or 5 years, I think this is the 6th year I've been offering it at FDIC, I've been doing 4 hours. And, boy, do I need it, because every time I do the presentation, I learn other things I can add. And I probably could make it a 6 or an 8-hour presentation now. So I have a nice packed, full of information, 4-hour presentation that I will again be offering at FDIC, and I hope to see you there. And again, I'm always tweaking it, always changing it, always discussing with class attendees things that they take out of it and things that they offer to me to add to it, and things that are going on in their operation and their side of the world that demonstrates professional service or conversely demonstrates a lack of professionalism. And I try to always be updating and tweaking and put something in there for everybody, because the presentation doesn't just cover the firematic side, because a lot of people think it always encompasses just professionalism when we talk about it's just the firematic side or the operations side, but this is really an all-encompassing presentation. I cover all sides of what make up a fire department, the firematic side for sure, but also the administrative side, interior firefighting operations for sure, but also exterior and scene support operations as well, and even past members, or in some areas of the country they're called exempts. There's something for them as well. So if you've never been to it, I would encourage you to maybe put it on your list if you're going to FDIC. I'd love to see you there. And if you're returning to FDIC, you know you won't be disappointed with any of the classes that you take. Biggest problem, we say it every year, is what? There's too many to choose from, and oftentimes you're left wanting to take 3 or 4 at the same time, putting you in quite a quandary. But, hey, for the 5th year in a row, Honeywell and DuPont, they will again together be offering an all-expenses-paid scholarship opportunity to 20 deserving first responders to attend FDIC. Folks, this is all expenses paid, your airfare, your hotel, your registration. And if you want some information on that, there's a form you can fill out if you go to the FDIC homepage via the fireengineering.com address. At the top of the page, you'll see a menu titled Awards, and there's a link to the scholarship there. Or you can simply go to fdicscholarship.com, and it'll have information for you. And it's a great opportunity, great way to get some deserving first responder to the conference who otherwise might not be able to attend. And if you can think of somebody that is deserving, you can certainly nominate them. And again, it's all expenses paid. And again, I'm excited to be heading back. I'm approaching, got to be my 20th time going to FDIC. And as I said, it's my 6th year as a presenter. I'm so honored and humbled to be chosen again. A big thank you, of course, to Fire Engineering and Chief Bobby Halton and the entire FDIC Advisory Board for that honor. Over 900 people apply to present there, and being selected is such an honor, and I promise I will continue to strive to meet the high expectations that have been established by those that have come before me and by FDIC Advisory Board. And I know those that maybe weren't chosen are certainly disappointed. I understand that. I encourage you to continue, keep trying, write some articles about the topic that you want to present on. That's always a great way to start. Keep tweaking and working on your presentation. Just don't quit. Understand you're disappointed, but just the fact that you are trying definitely demonstrates you are passionate, you are dedicated, and you are working hard to make our fire service better. Many presentations aren't selected the first or second go around. It takes 3 or 4 times. So please, if I can encourage you to keep trying, I'm certainly doing that. And speaking of the presentation, I've been getting inquiries. I've been booking presentations in the next year now because I love to get out and meet you volunteer firefighters, my fellow volunteer firefighters, see firsthand all the great things that are being done. And if anybody wants to reach out to me to talk about the presentation, to talk about the volunteer fire service, please, you can get me my Facebook page, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I'm on Twitter. My email, very easy. Contact me via email at tamerrill63@AOL.com. I'm going to be up at the Old Forge Fire School in Old Forge, New York, in the Adirondack Mountain Range in mid-September. That is such a great conference with great people, and I do look forward to heading up there in the beautiful month of September in the beautiful Adirondack Mountains. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I have several other engagements in the works and additions coming out to talk to various departments and associations, and a lot of communication with not just individuals and firefighters and officers, and all dedicated to the common cause of having their department and their members think of the job that they do as needing to be done by professional members in a professional operation. And as I mentioned a couple months ago, I sometimes am taken to task by some out there who might argue and maybe even try to vilify me for using the word professional in the same sentence as volunteer. But as I said a few shows ago, folks, I think we can all agree we're living in a very nasty, mean-spirited world today. And as members of the fire service, the great fire service, let us be the group that can demonstrate civility and common courtesy and live up to what we love to talk about, and that's the brotherhood and the sisterhood. And quite simply, the premise of this show, the premise of my presentation, the premise of my articles, my passion, and I know a lot of you out there share my passion, that as firefighters and as members of this great fire service, we can all strive to be professional and be as professional as possible in everything that we do. For being professional is meaning one who undertakes work that requires special skills and training, one who showcases their special skills, one who is totally dedicated to their craft, whatever it happens to be, one who does their job well and exhibits friendly and personable behavior, treats people, treats fellow workers nicely, a person of integrity, embraces teamwork, and in our case, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, upholding the stellar reputation of our fire service. That's what I talk about when I use the term professional. And those definitions are certainly in most dictionaries when you look up that word. And out of respect, I will acknowledge that some definitions do add a line regarding one who earns a living doing that work and is paid to engage in that craft. But along with that definition comes all those others that I just mentioned. So let's please work together to deliver professional service and acknowledge that we can all do it, whether paid as a career member or on the volunteer ranks. And remember, let's all agree that the term professional, it's not automatically assigned when you join a volunteer department or get hired onto a career department. It's simply earned by and continues to be earned by doing good, dedicated service every day and it's earned by how we act, how we train, how we treat people, and how we perform, and that is how we should be judged. And to help us tonight and to guide us all in a more professional direction and offer some advice and words of wisdom drawn from an incredible fire service career that is still going strong, I am so honored to have Chief John Buckman III on the show this evening. He served 35 years as chief of the German Township, Indiana Volunteer Fire Department. Imagine that, 35 years as chief. I know a lot of chiefs out there in the volunteer ranks, 1 or 2 years, they're getting tired. By the third or fourth year, they're out, and some term out after 2 years. So imagine 35 years. And he's done so much more than that, serving 15 years as the director of firefighter training for the Indiana State Fire Marshal's Office, past president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and a co-founder of the IFAC Volunteer and Officers section known as VCOS. In 1996, he was selected by Fire Chief Magazine as the Volunteer Fire Chief of the Year. He is the co-author of The Lesson Learned from Fire Rescue Leaders. He's the editor of the Fire Chief Officer's Desk Reference. He's also a member of the Fire Chief Fire Rescue One Editorial Advisory Board and also Fire Chief's Editorial Advisor. He is the owner of Wildfire Productions and is a much sought-after keynote speaker. And he is a fellow FDIC instructor as well. If you would like to call in and discuss anything on your mind with Chief Buckman, I know he would encourage you to do so. We don't bite. Please feel free to call in at 760-454-8852, 1-760-454-8852. We would love to hear from you. Chief Buckman, are you with me?
I am, Tom. Yes, sir.
Good to have you with me, Chief. I hope, I know I just covered briefly your career, your stellar career. My gosh, still going so strong. But thank you so very much for being on the show tonight. I really appreciate it.
Well, Tom, I'm glad to be here as well. This is a topic that's been near and dear to me for a long time. People try, first of all, I should say, of all the things that I've accomplished, I will tell you the best title I've ever had is the title of grandfather. And as Tom said, go look at his Facebook page, go look at my Facebook page, and you're going to see pictures of my grandkids. My 5-year-old Kate, my 8-year-old Nick, Maddie's 16, Rory. I got a couple that are 19, 20, but they are what brings joy to me. And with all the problems, all the stress that we have in life, I would encourage everybody to not forget you have a family to bring joy to your life. And so take some time to spend, or take the right amount of time to spend with that family, because they will bring joy to your life and bring a smile to your face. So, but I am glad to be here to talk about this professional volunteer fire department title. And I know Tom maybe didn't like using the word title. Professional is a state of mind. It's not, as Tom said, it's not given to you. It's not bestowed upon you because you join. I believe it's a state of mind. It's how you believe in yourself that you are the best you can be at whatever task it is. It doesn't matter whether you are paid or whether you are not. You could be a parachute jumper. You can be a firefighter. You can be a marksman, shooting pistols and rifles and stuff like that. If you're the best you can be, you have earned the right to call yourself a professional.
Oh, such great words of wisdom there, Chief, on so many levels. The family, number one, absolutely, and that's a problem I think a lot of dedicated volunteers get into, is making family time, but I'll get into that in a minute. But so I guess it's fair to say then that you agree with the premise that professional doesn't have to apply to a paid or volunteer. It applies to the person.
Absolutely. It is about it. To me, it's more of an internal thing than an external thing. Badge on me that says professional, because that's an outside thing. That's not a mindset. I really believe that you decide, each individual decides whether they want to be a professional Well, I've used this different analogy. Do you want to belong to the Brotherhood or the T-shirt club? There's
Right.
a huge difference. A huge difference. We recently had a fire on July 4th here in German Township, and I've told this young man, you're going to become an article. But my wife Leslie and I ran into him at Baskin-Robbins a couple nights after the fire, and I said, "Oh, hey, I missed you at the fire the other night." He goes, "Yeah, I was out with some of my friends." I said, "Oh, were you drinking?" No, I don't drink. And I said to myself, "Shut up, let him go." A couple days later, I saw him. I said, "So you're telling me that you were out with some of your friends, you weren't drinking, you knew there was a call, and you chose not to come?" "Well, yeah, I was busy with my friends." I said, "Well, then I'm going to designate you a member of the T-shirt club, because you're not in the Brotherhood, because the Brotherhood is about sacrifice. The T-shirt club does it because it's for fun, and so it relates to the volunteer, and it can be a career, whether the career guy can be in the Brotherhood or the T-shirt club. I was at a training session some time ago, and I saw a career guy in the T-shirt club. He didn't engage in the training. He sat back. He was not participating. That's not a professional. If you're at a training session, participate. So, but I think that, to me, that's where we have lost this. We've lost the Brotherhood. We use that term so much. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm in the Brotherhood, the sisterhood." It's about performance. The same thing with professional. You don't say the word, you live the word. You live the word professional volunteer, or you live the word Brotherhood. And that's what makes us stronger.
Absolutely, and you've given me about 5 new Facebook quotes, and of course I will truly acknowledge you. But you don't say the word, you live the word. Wow, that's some powerful stuff, and it is something that I think all firefighters, paid and volunteer, need to step back and look at and acknowledge and truly look in the mirror and see where they fit in there, and to see, are you living the word professional? And there's so much that encompasses and goes into that word. And so you obviously, this comes from a long line of experience that you've witnessed, good and bad, over the years. So obviously an extremely distinguished career that's still flourishing. And in the beginning of the show, I captured in a nutshell some of the highlights. But if you wouldn't mind, just spend a couple minutes, tell the audience who you are, where you come from, how'd you first get into the fire service, what got you interested, and how'd you end up as chief for 35 years?
I had great mentors. When I joined my volunteer fire department, they still had beer in the fire station. Beer in the refrigerator cost $0.25, and that was in 1970. And in order for me to get on my volunteer fire department, you had to have sponsors, adult members who would sponsor you to take care of you, to watch out for you, to guide you. And I had 2 great mentors, Jerry Compton and Don Johan. I just spent 5 hours with Jerry Compton and his son today. His son came in from Seattle, and I hadn't seen him in 10 years. But they are the ones who shaped me and molded me. They are the ones who gave me the idea that you have to be trained in order to be a firefighter. You can't just show up at a fire and get out the buckets and utilizing a bucket brigade concept and put out fires. That's not the way we did it in 1970. So that's what got me started. I got started with 2 other friends. We hung out together. We heard the fire siren go off at the fire station. I lived about a block from the fire station, and so we joined. We got in trouble the first year because Red Oates, the assistant chief at the time, he would give us a key to the fire station so we could go in the fire station and wash and wax the trucks. Well, remember, there's also beer in the fire station. Well, we didn't drink any of the beer, but Red got in trouble for letting us in the fire station and breaking the rules. So, we learned, okay, there are rules and there's consequences to breaking the rules. So, again, from a mentoring standpoint. I got involved with the International Association of Fire Chiefs in 1985 when they put out an announcement that said they're going to reconstitute the volunteer committee. And I asked my board of directors, can I go to this meeting? And they said yes. It was going to be in Loudoun County, Virginia. Billy Goldfeder was the director at the time there. And so I went. Billy remained chairman until 1988. Then I became chairman of the Volunteer and Combination Officer section. It was called something different back then. Then I got out of being chairman, I think, in about 1998, and then started going through the chairs, the International Association of Fire Chiefs. Fortunately, was president of the International Association of Fire Chiefs after when September 11th occurred. I say fortunately because I got to do a lot of cool things. Got to go to the White House numerous times, got to meet the president numerous times, got to testify before Congress, traveled around the country more times than any other president had traveled. And so I was very lucky in that regards. And I was involved, and mentors helped me with the International Association of Fire Chiefs. David Bibber out of Dover, New Hampshire, at a board meeting or a meeting of some type, and say, if you want us to agree to help support what you want to do, you need to present it in this way. So I learned a little bit more about tact, a little bit more about how to communicate with people, and so then, again, I was lucky to be in that position. I got to do some things after that with the federal government and Homeland Security Advisory Task Group, and you can either give me credit or give me blame for being one of the people that wrote the original NIMS document back in about 1994, 1995. When we wrote that document, a group of us went to Washington, D.C., fire, police, EMA, EMS people, and produced the first national incident management system. So, but then I have a great family. I have a wife that we've been together 27, almost 28 years. That when we started dating, I said, I'm not going to be home a lot. And I probably heard about it once or twice that, you're never home, but it's never been one of the primary messages that she has said to me when stuff doesn't get done or hasn't gotten done around the house, that she uses that excuse or uses that to beat me over the head. So I've had a great supportive wife, Leslie, and then again, my grandkids and my kids all been very supportive of that.
Yeah, and as we all know,
that's about a nutshell, Tom.
Yeah, we all know, you can't. Part of being a successful firefighter is having that support network in line at home, because boy, do we need that support in any position we might happen to be, from firefighter on up the rank, and that's so important. And you've acknowledged that several times, which is certainly something that we should take away from tonight's show is, take care of the home front. That's very important, and acknowledge that you need their support. If you're going to be a successful leader, you're going to definitely need their support, because you don't need the stress of having issues at home or at work, because you got to get those in line, and you'll be more successful down in the firehouse for sure. Tell us a little bit about the fire department you were chief of for 35 years. Is that a combination, or paid, or volunteer 100%?
We transitioned. We were all volunteer. No benefits. I mean, you got a free T-shirt and stuff like that. Way back, I first became fire chief in 1977, and basically we didn't have a clothing allowance, uniform allowance, or any of that kind of stuff. We transitioned to where we started paying volunteers, having a point system, so there was a little bit of reimbursement of cost, never enough to make it worth your time. It wasn't $15 an hour or anything like that. Then we transitioned into having paid people. Really, we hired the first paid person to cut the grass. Between the three properties, we had 7 acres of grass to cut, and the volunteers didn't want to do it. Under the old system, we assigned volunteers to do it. If I'm doing it this week, but the last 2 weeks it hasn't been done, I'm pretty upset, because my job is a lot harder. So we hired somebody to cut grass and said, wow, that's pretty cool. They can cut grass, and if there's a run, they can go make the run. Well, one person, then we decided after a few months, well, let's do 2 persons. We hired the 2 persons, and we probably stayed with 2 people. On a part-time basis, there were career firefighters that would do it, some volunteers that would do it. That was before the FLSA thing became an issue with volunteers.
Right, I've got to bring that up. Fair Labor Standard Act, got to be aware of that.
Yep. You can't pay someone to do, or you can't have someone volunteer and pay them to do the exact same job for the same employer. That gets you into a significant financial investment should they get a lawyer. But then we hired two full-time people, and that didn't work. I mean, they wouldn't stay long enough to really make it. We weren't paying that much money for them to make this a career. So we went back to the part-time thing. Part-time still works today. We do two paid people, about 11 hours a day, Monday through Friday. They do still have a point system that is used to reward the volunteers. The more active you are, the more money you could make. But nobody's getting over $1,500 a year, or $2,000 at the most. So it's a little respect money maybe that you can go out and buy something, or John would go out and buy a new camera, but not everybody does that. So,
all right, another one of your passions, right?
Oh yeah. I do want to say something.
Yeah.
So that you said this a minute ago, and it made me think about, again, going back to that word professional, and about the mental process or the mental mindset that you can have. I would tell you that if you want to be considered a professional, then set the standard. Be a role model. You lead people you say and by what you do. You influence people by what they hear and see you do and say. And I use this story. It just happened on Monday. I'm sure everybody on here has gotten that phone call from that company that says, we want to lower your interest rate on your credit card, or we want to help you get rid of your student loan. And I got a call on Monday from the IRS, and they were going to send the Indiana State Police to arrest me for owing back taxes. And I said, so the Indiana State Police is going to come arrest me for federal IRS charges. 5-year-old granddaughter Kate was sitting next to me, and she said, Grandpa, you're going to get arrested? And my point in this story is, what I said, she heard. What you say as a firefighter or a chief, people hear. How you dress, how you conduct yourself. People see that. If you let your hair down, if you wear a T-shirt that's holy, if you have your shirt not tucked in, if you wear blue jeans with holes in them or mud on your boots, you are setting a standard by which people will emulate you, not just my 5-year-old granddaughter. And so if you want to be considered professional, remember all those things about how you present, what you say, how you walk, how you talk. Have a command presence that says I'm a professional. You don't have to say it. Your actions say it for you.
Absolutely. And what's amazing, Chief, is what you say is so spot on, and it's been shared by leaders and fire service icons nationwide. But sometimes we still fail to get the message. People just, I don't know if it goes in one ear and out the other, but then you see these failures in leadership and failures in professional behavior time in and time again. And I don't know if they're just so distracted that it appears that they're listening to what you have to say or when they read the articles, but there it is every day again to see that there's failures almost every day in getting that message. So if you want to be considered professional, act it.
But see, I will tell you that I think we focus on our failures and we don't celebrate our successes. And because Ronnie Coleman said this to me a long time ago. John, be happy with 80%. And what he was saying to me, when you look at trying to convince people to follow you, trying to convince people to do what you need them to do, to motivate them, he said, if you worry about getting 100%, you will spin your wheels and you will not accomplish anything. And I've used that. I've quoted him because it's not my idea. But I really believe that it's 20% of the people who are doing bad, dumb, or stupid things, and we're ignoring the 80% who are doing exactly what we want, or maybe even exceeding what we want. And we're not, and so they don't get recognized. They don't get shown appreciation. In the volunteer world, that's all you got to give them. recognition and appreciation.
Right. And what you say there is it doesn't just apply to the fire service. It's a national epidemic where it's the bad news and the bad stories that are getting all the news, and there's so much good out there that gets ignored. And
right.
you're absolutely right. And I think it was Chief Rick Lasky. I remember him once in one of his classes talking about one of his mentors. I think it was a chief back when he was in the Chicago area. Said to him once, catch him doing something right. Don't keep focusing on the negatives.
Yep.
Catch your troops doing something right and celebrate that. And acknowledge that.
See, if you go back to your children, if you discipline them when they do bad stuff, but you don't discipline them when they do good stuff, guess what? They're going to do bad stuff because that's all they know. How they get recognized and appreciated. They don't know the difference. And the psychologists will tell us you get what you ask for. And go to firechief.com and look up my article on toxic leadership, which is about 3 weeks old, maybe 4. And I tell the story about this fire chief who had nothing good to say about any of his members. They were all trash. They were all incompetent, could not perform the job. He resigned. And I will tell you, that fire department hasn't missed a call. The young people who were useless in this guy's mind and his words and actions, they're making calls still today. They're still doing the job. Nobody has died. And so what happened was he beat them into submission. And so, again, I'm going to go back to we have to say good things to volunteers. We have to recognize they're doing the best they can. I would say that if you, and I'm writing an article on Who Am I? I'm interviewing young people, and I ask them this question: are you doing as much as you can do? And most all of 80% of them will say, I'm giving as much as I got to give. This is as much time as I got. Okay. Then I'll take that 80%. I will take that 80% because that's what I'm getting, and I will accept that.
Yeah. Which is an interesting point too, because the traditional model of the volunteer fire department is based upon minimum requirements, which I'm a firm advocate that yes, there has to be minimum standards. Some of these standards are so, I shouldn't say outdated, I don't know what the right word to use is, but they just haven't been revisited in a while. And we all need members. We all need people to be around and to help out at the details and events and, of course, the emergency calls. Yet in some cases we're tossing people out because they're trying to support their family and their two parents are working and they're maybe not around as much as they would like to be. And I think in the volunteer world today we might want to look at some of what these standards are, and maybe they can't make the 8 meetings or 7 or 6 meetings that's a requirement in the bylaws. But is that really good criteria to be maybe dismissing a member? Just one small example there. Do you agree?
Oh, Tom, first of all, I don't even know why we have business meetings. Are we a fraternal organization or a professional organization? Because, you see, fraternal organizations have monthly meetings. Professional organizations, they may have monthly meetings, but it's not to make a motion to pay the utility bill. They have monthly meetings because they're having a professional meeting and they're bringing in a professional presentation or doing something to enhance their professional development. The volunteer fire service should get out of the fraternal Benjamin Franklin model. I just said this a few months ago out in Tulsa. The Benjamin Franklin model is fractured. The way he organized us was fraternal. We have long since passed fraternal. We have a fraternal aspect, but if that's the primary reason our volunteer fire department exists, we're in trouble. because the fraternal aspect is about drinking, partying, having a good time. It's not about work. It's about, in Benjamin Franklin's day, it's rushing to the fire scene and trying to beat the other people there, and then getting in fights on the scene, fighting over who gets to put the first bucket on the fire. That's not what we are today. That's not what we should be today. And again, 80% of us are not that kind of person. They are good people and good organizations.
And you're talking to a firefighter here on my end where, and I've said this before on previous shows, we still have, and I'm speaking for what I know of my area in my state, we still have many departments that alcohol's in the firehouse. Now, that being said, they all have the strict rules that accompany that. However, I've always said, and as Gordon Graham says, predictable is preventable. We're one mistake away from disaster. We really are. One mistake away from disaster. And, there's those that argue there's a fine line between the professional business side of being a firefighter and the volunteer side of having a social club aspect to it. Dangerous to combine the two, but there's those that argue you've got to have a little bit of both.
Right. And you do.
And
absolutely you do.
Yeah.
There has to be a fraternal aspect.
Yep. And I think, as you say, the professional side, you can still have fun. You can still make it fun and make it rewarding. And also what that fraternal side is, and I know you'd agree with this, and what's Chief Goldfeder really been hammering lately is we've got to get the volunteer firefighter. I mean, in this day of time constraints, and people, the 80% are saying, I'm doing everything I can do. Well, what would you rather have them being around for? That emergency call or the bingo or fundraiser that's mandatory 6 times a year? Not in any way trying to disparage those events at all. They're fun. They can be great family time. However, when times are constrained, maybe there's some wiggle room there to look at not making those requirements. But unfortunately, in many areas of the country, that's their lifeblood, and they have to do it. And, one of the greatest quotes I heard recently, I think I said it on my last show, is, the days of fundraising, and we can't chicken barbecue our way to a new fire truck anymore. It's just not possible. But, unfortunately, it's reality for so many areas.
Yeah. Well, German Township is getting ready to take delivery of a new Pierce in October, $843,000. You cannot do pancake breakfast, chicken dinners, raffles, and you can't pay that off that way.
Right. Yeah, and until some of our leaders out there on the political spectrum understand that, and again, as Billy Goldfeder says, do the police have to have a chicken barbecue when they need a new car? Do utilities need to have a chicken barbecue when they need new utility trucks? Why are we the service that still has to do that in so many areas of the country? And I guess you can say it's just quite unfair. And what do we do? What do we always do as fire department? We adapt and we overcome, and somehow we do it. But boy, is it getting harder and harder, and we do lose people because of it. There's no doubt.
Sure, absolutely.
You mentioned that
because we've always done it.
Yeah, and when they take something away from us, we still manage to make it work and find other ways to do it. And that's just, I guess, it's good and bad. But, hey, folks, as a reminder, I just want to remind everybody that you're listening to Fire Engineering Talk Radio, and this episode of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. And our guest tonight is Chief John Buckman III, and certainly well experienced in both the volunteer side of things as well as the career side of things. So much information that he has to share. If you have a question for the chief, a problem, a situation you want to discuss, please feel free to give us a call at 1-760-454-8852. And Chief, I want to bring up, you mentioned that article you wrote just a few weeks ago. Fantastic article, and I encourage people, if they haven't read it yet, to find it online. It's the signs of toxic leadership, and you put an interesting twist on it, because people say toxic leadership, it's the chief or the president or the commissioner, but you also talk about it being in the firefighters as well. It can exist at all levels in the fire service.
Yeah, we choose our own attitude. And, so many of us, because we are bombarded with so much negative stuff. I won't even name the news stations, but I say this when I'm doing presentations. Quit watching the news. The news, for the most part, is 80% negative and 20% positive. Well, Zig Ziglar, a hero of mine, motivational speaker, said years ago, again, what you feed your mind is what you think. And so if all you're putting into your mind is negative stuff, then all you're going to get out of your mind is negative stuff. And you choose your attitude. You can wake up every morning and say, it's a great day. I'm glad I'm awake. Probably all know those people who go, oh, my gosh, I hate to wake up in the morning. Really? That's not an acceptable alternative for me. I want to see my 5-year-old granddaughter get married. I want to be around. I want to enjoy life. I want to go to work. I want to do things. I want to accomplish things. But because we are bombarded so much with negative stuff, I think it impacts our mental wellness. And you have to work very hard at having a positive attitude in today's environment because, again, how much stuff is fed to you. So, quit watching news, get into motivational books, motivational audio books, read, listen to different things. Don't have to always be about the fire service, but fill your mind with positive reinforcement of the good stuff that goes on in our life.
Yeah, good advice, because it is a nasty world. That's how my presentation starts off, is acknowledging just in many ways what a nasty world we live in, and how to overcome that. And it's some great advice. Yes, surround yourself with good, positive people. Relish your family. Get into a good book. I agree with you. The news can be so depressing and so demotivating. And it's never too late to change, right, Chief? I think you even say in your article that there's certainly positive traits that an effective fire service leader exhibits. And I would say, no matter where you are in your career, it's never too late to start resetting and maybe focusing on these positive traits.
Remember, the sun comes up to a new day every day. So if you want a new attitude, it can start tomorrow morning when the sun comes down on your face. And so don't wait. Don't worry about what you did yesterday. Live in the present, and you can change and make your attitude more positive, and you'll be healthier for it.
Yeah. And I just finished, speaking of reading great books, I just finished My American Journey by Colin Powell. And he's been a hero of mine, and he's got some great advice. And I'm not going to quote it verbatim. It's not in front of me right now. But the gist of it is, no matter how bad things are tonight, everything looks a little better in the morning.
Sure.
And some great advice. Another great book. And again, I think we've said it many times. If you want to be a good leader, don't be afraid to be a reader. There's a lot of great material out there that you can delve into. And as the chief said, it doesn't have to all be fire related. And it's good to do that. Good to do that. And Chief, I want to switch directions quickly, if I could, before I forget. I get a lot of emails and I get a lot of questions, and frankly, a lot of people bring up problems to me with combination departments. Problem being that they'll say things like the volunteers don't respect the paid don't respect the volunteers don't train enough, the paid expect too much of the volunteers, and I'd like to get your input. I know you wrote an article in the past about leading combination departments, and I think you're going to see them becoming more of a model nationwide and increasing in popularity. And there definitely can be some challenges. And my take on it, it's got to be a two-way streak where both sides respect each other. But what have you learned in a model combination department? What are some of the issues and problems you've seen, and hopefully you'll learn how to overcome?
Conflict is normal. Accept it. Manage it. We have two sides. We're going to have conflict. We're going to have conflict in opinion. We're going to have conflict in ethics and ethical No, not. Let's just leave it at conflicts. It's not about ethics. There's only one way to handle ethics. There's only one standard. But it's conflicts because we have different points of view. The key is somebody has got to be the monkey in the middle. Somebody's got to be that person who's going to go, I need to get both you sides to sit down here and tell me exactly what the problem is. Not emotionally, but factually. The volunteers don't train enough. Quantify that. The career guys don't respect the volunteers. Quantify that. Those are emotional statements. They are not factual. So if one of the two groups is not training enough, how much is enough? If, using the career guys not treating the volunteers with respect, how do you want the career guys to treat the volunteers? And vice versa. What do you mean by they don't treat you with respect? Give me specific examples. Well, they cussed me out. Okay, we can handle that. That's not appropriate. Well, they didn't say hi to me. Do you know why they didn't say hi? Were they on the phone? Were they distracted? Were they, getting ready to go do something? I mean, but so my point is, all conflict, not just in a combination or a transitioning type department, all conflict is normal. We are successful if we will confront that conflict in a factual way. We are all, on this podcast and all blog radio, we're all emotional type A personality people. But when we have conflict, we have to deal with them on a factual basis. What's the root of the problem? And in this, volunteers don't train enough, career don't respect the volunteers enough. When you really dig down deep, I'm going to go back to the 80%. 20% of the volunteers don't train enough. Okay? In my opinion, you accept that. No matter how hard you work, that 20% of those volunteers are not going to do any more training. They're already so busy. They don't respect me enough. Most of it will be so petty arguments that when you get down to the facts of the situation, you're going to go, is this really what we're talking about?
Right.
Somebody needs to grow up.
Yeah, we sometimes spend so much time on what I coined a term for wasted energy with everything else there is to do. Just running a volunteer fire department, because it is a business in a lot of sense of the word. Yep. With everything there is to do, it sometimes can be so much wasted energy. And what you just described in a nutshell is what I call the nasty C word, and that's communication. People need to learn how to communicate with each other. And like you said, try and keep emotions out of it. And let's get some factual information and get people to sit down and learn how to talk and learn how to examine issues and challenges without letting emotions take over and without talking about it and not doing anything about it. It's just going to fester and simmer and spread like wildfire. If I'm in the back room talking about that side and the other side's in the back room talking about me, no, that's not going to help any organization. Sit down and communicate with each other.
At some point in time, what you just described, somebody's got to go. What you just described, we're in the back room, we're beating up each other, and the other groups in the back room beating up each other. At some point in time, somebody's got to go. I can't remember her name, but I was at a presentation, a national presentation, and she did a presentation, and she talked about energy suckers. People who just suck the life right out of you. And there are. I mean, when I was fire chief, my office was right inside the door of headquarters. I would see people pull up, and I know they're coming in there, and I'm thinking, oh, my God, close my door. Act like I'm on the phone. Because all they would do was come in and bitch, moan, gripe, and complain. And it becomes like a cancer. You said it a minute ago. They grow. Yeah. They get one person's a griper. Next thing you know, they get somebody else because it looks like it's fun. So you as a leader, when you identify those energy suckers, they either got to go or you got to change them. And I got to tell you, some people, I'm going to say 80% of those people are not going to change because they decide every morning when they wake up, their attitude is, my life sucks, and I want yours to suck too.
Mhm. Yeah, and with the combination department, I think one of the biggest issues that people have brought to my attention is, and you mentioned it earlier, is the different standards that each side feels aren't being met. I think you were referring to training standards, maybe, or performance standards, and I think again, what's your experience with that? Two sides have to get together and decide what are our performance standards going to be, both paid and volunteer. I guess that's clearly defining expectation.
Right. It's one standard. It's one performance standard, and so I'll get in trouble with this statement, but I think the professional qualification standards are not reasonable. And I understand the people who sit on those committees are passionate, they're zealots, they really believe that what they're doing is the wrong thing. But I think a couple of big mistakes in my career. One, when we used to have firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and firefighter 3, and we allowed it to go down to firefighter 1 and firefighter 2, that was a mistake. I should have been raising Cain. I was probably chair of the volunteer section or maybe in the IFC chairs at that time. Should have been raising Cain. We need 3 standards. The level 1 could be an exterior standard. Level 2 could be an interior standard. And then level 3 could be a little higher level of interior standard. But there are so many of our firefighters who are never going to go inside a burning building, never going to put an air pack on. What's the standard performance for them? And in a combination system, depending on how many people you have on duty, the actuality of, or the reality of a volunteer actually being on a nozzle going inside a burning building may not exist because you already have 4 people on duty or 6 people on duty, and they're going to be on scene long before the volunteer even gets to the station. And so they're not going to be the first due. So what are their expectations? What is the job you expect them to do? OSHA says the employer trains the people, trains the employees in the task they're expected to perform. So do we expect any firefighter to reset the fire alarm when a fire alarm goes off? Do we expect a firefighter to turn off a sprinkler system? There are some skills that we just don't do.
Right.
But we're required to train people and certify people to that. So my point to your question is let's make the standards applicable to the vast majority of the fire departments. And if somebody in a fire department wants to be a firefighter 3, then that's fine. But if somebody wants to be exterior only, and that's level 1, that's fine as well. Each fire department determines the standard of performance that they expect their members to do. And there should be one standard. I say it this way is that if you want to be exterior, that's one thing. If you want to be interior, A level and interior B level, that's fine. But we don't have a volunteer level that says, our volunteer standard says, well, volunteers have to be level 1 interior and career people have to be level 2 interior. No.
Yeah, one standard.
If there's a minimum standard, it's got to be one standard. And I don't even like using the professional qual standards. What I like to use is I want you to be able to pull up on a scene, get out of your seat, unbuckle your seatbelt, get out of your seat with your air pack on, get the engine 3/4 off the truck and to the front door in under 2 minutes. That's a standard. I don't care if you're a career volunteer, there's a standard. I want you to be able to get off the truck. I want you to unbuckle, get off the truck, have your air pack on, get a 24-foot extension ladder off the truck, and get it raised to the second floor, and I want you to go in and do a primary search. And I want you to do that in 2 minutes, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Those are the things that every fire department is a little different. So those standards, you as a fire department set those standards. And you could have, your fire department could have 15 standards, and me being next door to you, I could have 12. That's okay. But everybody has to meet the standard. Career, volunteer, combination, everybody meets the standard.
Yeah. Let's just look at it as you're a firefighter. And whether you're interior, exterior, if there's different standards for those, then you got to meet that standard. But your bottom line is you're a firefighter, and we don't look at career, we don't look at volunteer, we just look at where you fall in the chain there at that department. And I think it's fair to say that that's still a challenge for a lot of volunteer fire departments to embrace. In other words, there's a lot out there, and I've talked about this on previous shows, that they don't want you if you're not willing to go through the full Firefighter 1 class and become certified as a structural firefighter. And I think that's a shame with all the other things going on in the volunteer fire service and all the other jobs and details and things that need to be accomplished. We're losing some good people in this day of needing people. And I also think
not
that
fit all.
And I think even at a fire scene, let's face it, you think of your worst case fire scenario, a really well-involved structure fire, and even if there's rescues to be made, there's still jobs that can be performed and performed professionally and proficiently by maybe people who aren't Firefighter 1 certified, but they meet the standard of their rank, for lack of a better term. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think we have trouble grasping that in our...
I had a guy once, an officer in a fire department, volunteer, combination system, asked me, from a volunteer perspective, he said, if a volunteer comes in and says, I see your list and you want $1 of my time, but I'm only willing to give you 25 cents. Will you accept my 25 cents worth of effort? And my answer was yes. I will take that 25 cents because, I bet I can get 50 cents out of you in a couple weeks. I may not get 75, but I believe that I can. If you get in here and only willing to give me a quarter, I'll get half out of you. And again, I'm going to use that 80% factor. I believe I can get that out of 80% of the people. And so going back to your comment, if you're not willing to accept that 25 cents, but you're only going to say, I got to have dollars, you're not going to get anybody. I should say not anybody. You're not going to get as many people as you can to be a member of your fire department. Different strokes for different folks. This is not a cookie-cutter approach to management. It is in a career fire department. But even I'm teaching a Fire Officer 1 class, and I made this statement. I said, are there career guys who don't go inside burning buildings? And these 19 students are all career people, all union members, said yes. We have career members on our fire department who do not go inside burning buildings. And I said, you accept that, don't you? And they're sort of like they're taking a deep breath and going, yep, we accept it. We don't like it, but we accept it. Same thing in the volunteer world. I'm only willing to give you 25 cents, so I'm not going to be an interior firefighter, but I can change air bottles, start the generator, get a ladder off the truck, do rehab, et cetera, et cetera. I can do all these things. But you're telling me, nope, you don't want that. I think that's a poor decision. Poor decision.
Yeah. I agree, and it's hard to get some people to change and accept that mindset. But as the old saying goes, many hands make light work. Why not make this day and age, with so much demand, so many demands on us, why are we turning people away that maybe do offer so many other things that they can do for us? And again, folks, just want to remind everyone, this is Fire Engineering Talk Radio, tonight's installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. Tom Merrill here. So honored to have Chief John Buckman III on with us. If anyone has any questions for the Chief or challenges they're facing or anything at all, just please give us a call at 760-454-8852. And covering so many great areas here, Chief, one thing I did want to pick your brain a little bit on, and it goes a little bit in line with these expectations and these performance standards. Let's talk about training, the terrible T word, that can be a challenge for volunteer departments. Some of the things I've learned as I go around the country talking to people, and even in my own world, in my own experiences, is sometimes we throw new officers into the role. You're a new lieutenant. Well, you now have to help do drill every week, or you're going to be made the training officer, and putting on a good drill can be challenging. And if they're not done well, then your attendance is going to lack. I know you wrote an article on repetitive training and the importance of repeating things, and I'd like to spend some time getting your take on how do you put together a good drill, and how do we get good attendance? And because I know that's a real challenge for volunteer as well as career departments, is getting people fired up for training.
One of many topics that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm very passionate about. And I will tell you that the number one demotivating factor in a volunteer staffed organization is training sucks. It wastes my time because our training officers are not spending an appropriate amount of time planning the training, and they are doing so much training in a classroom. When our firefighters want hands-on, they want to go out and use the apparatus. They want to go out and play with the equipment, squirt water. Yes, if you have access to live fire opportunities, they want to come out and do live fire. But our training officers have the wrong mindset, because so many of them in the volunteer world they show me that after bulb works at 7 o'clock when training starts, we got a great night of training ahead of us. If the bulb doesn't work, we're in trouble. Training should not be about the projector. It should be about the apparatus. It should be about the equipment on the apparatus. We should make sure that people know how to start the generator, raise the light, string out the electrical cord, set up the positive pressure vent fan, refuel the positive pressure vent fan. Make sure they know how to put gasoline in it, et cetera, et cetera. But I know so many training officers go, well, I don't know what to train on. Well, you can go to firefighterclosecalls.com. You can go to fire engineering. You can go to lots of different places that have prepared lesson plans. You can buy training evolutions from IFSTA. There are a lot. You make that the excuse, it means you're not looking. You can take your Firefighter 1 curriculum and develop skills-based training based upon Firefighter 1 skills. But we have to change our mindset. The training is not about the instructor needs. It is about the student needs. But we have so many instructors whose ego says, I'm so glad to be up here in front of you tonight because I'm going to tell you everything I know. I don't care what you know. I care what you're going to show me and let me do to make me a better firefighter, because that's what a chief needs, is someone who's able to perform the task. Yes, you got to know the task, but you got to be able to perform it, and there's a difference. It's like teaching ladders for certification course. You should not be teaching ladders or hose or nozzles or streams in a classroom. You should be out next to the apparatus, and you should point out the ladder that's sitting in front of them on the side of the apparatus, not using a picture of a ladder on a PowerPoint slide. That's how kids today want to be engaged in training, in learning. They do not want to sit on their behind and have you try to spoon feed them, because they will look it up on the internet to make sure what you're telling them is the right thing. Mm-hmm. Our young people are smart. They are smart. If you will give them credit and encourage them to go look stuff up, they will learn stuff on their own. But we need to get them out of their seats, out in the street, and have them learn by doing what we expect them to do on the fire ground. I made an automobile accident the other day, a motor vehicle accident. It's almost like it was in the movies. This car ran off the road, ran into a stone. I'm talking a big stone, like 4 feet tall. The van did not move the stone. That's how big it was. The van flips over, end over end, I'm the first one there. I do not establish command. I'm surveying the situation. We have a female in the driver's seat. Airbags have deployed, still seat belted in. The rescue squad shows up. 2 of the paid people get off. A volunteer shows up, and he starts to work. He goes, "That's my aunt." I said, "Well, come on, let's get to work here. We got to get her out. Get the spreader." He used the spreader. I used the cutter. We got the one hinge broke off. We got the other hinge. I didn't use the spreader because he was in the wrong position. I used the spreader on the other hinge. He used the cutter. We got it off. And this is what he said to me afterwards. I congratulated him, pat him on the back. Great job. He's a young kid. He goes, "It was just like in training." I said, "That's exactly what I want to hear.
That's
I
right.
want to know that what we did in training applied to what we did on the fire ground, or in this case, a motor vehicle accident." It's like, what kind of better compliment can a training officer get than that? It wasn't a compliment to me. It was a compliment to our chief of training here at German Township, Heather Henry. And it's like, wow, this kid learned it at training, and he got to do it on a real run, which ended up being his aunt.
Wow, what a powerful example that is. And, yeah, kudos to the training program. And, hey, it does pay off, right? I mean, think if our military didn't train. I think we'd be in a world of hurt, right? And, Chief, one thing, and I can say this now, I've 36 years in the fire service, and I guess I got gray hair to show it, but training never stops. I'm adamant about that. I don't understand this. Well, you've been in 25 years now. You only got to go to 3 drills. What? Why are we doing that in the volunteer fire service? Because nothing sharpens the saw better than going to training. And I still learn every time I go and reaffirm my skills.
Yep, absolutely. You have to do that. I mean, that is the name of the game.
And it also is leading by example, and new members come in and see senior members attending training. Oh, this is important. They're still going. And you talk about a great mentor program. That's part of it. You can certainly mentor the new member on the training ground and demonstrate how important it is to do that, to attend drills. And I don't understand why we have this mindset in the volunteer ranks that when you've been in so many years, you don't have to train anymore, or certainly only have to go to a few. So I'm thinking it's part of retention, that we're going to burn them out and we're going to lose them. I don't know about that. We're training for being proficient in a job that can kill you.
Well, I guess I would ask the question of why. Why? We have training, let's say, next Sunday. Why are we having training? Answer the question. Simon Sinek wrote a book, Start With Why. Are we having training because it's Sunday? Because it's 1 o'clock on Sunday? Are we having training because we want to improve your skills? We want to improve your capability to perform the job that I or you expect, as the department leader, expect you to be able to do. So start with why.
Yeah, and what's important? Earlier we talked about the different roles in the volunteer fire service and how we should be open to people that maybe don't want to all be interior firefighters. I think it's important, too, when we put these training drills together to remember that in departments that have those different categories of membership, to include them and welcome them and not try and look down upon those that aren't interior firefighters, and certainly have ideas set up for them to perform at drills so they can meet whatever standard it is for the position they have. And I think sometimes that gets lost, and then they don't show up to the drill.
Right. And if those 20% are not respected, they're not coming. And we need the 20%, just like we need the 80. Certainly would love to have them perform at a higher level, but again, that's not always going to happen.
Right. Yeah, and we talked about a few minutes ago. I mentioned how some people look at, well, we don't want to lose our 20-year members or 25-year members. So if we make them go to 10 drills a year, we might start losing them. But I think retention is a huge issue in the fire service, along with recruitment. And I know last year at FDIC, am I right? Last year you presented a class on retention and recruitment. And I'd like to get your ideas on what our volunteer fire service can do in both of those areas, because that is such a hot potato today. And I sometimes think retention is actually the hard part. I mean, recruitment's certainly a challenge, but we're finding that in some cases we're losing people within the first year. And I'd like to get your thought. What do you talk about in your class? You could put a little plug in for. Is that what you're teaching again in 2019 when you're back at FDIC?
No, I'm doing training to kill or train for skill. The name of this year's class.
All right.
Yeah, but okay. So, and you said the title right. You said I did a class on retention and recruitment, and I just did the similar class out in Tulsa at the Oklahoma State Firefighters Conference. And the guys walked in the class and they go,
I was wondering about that. When I typed it out, I was questioning that.
It's not backwards. Retention is what's important. If you can get them in the door, there are people who are interested in joining. It's keeping them once you get them in the door. It's through quality leadership. It's through motivated leadership. It's through having realistic rules. First of all, people will stay on your fire department. The number one reason they stay on your fire department is because they like the people they are doing it with. You can have all the benefits you want, but if we have a bunch of members on this fire department who are not friendly, not sociable, I'm going to quit. Secondly, do not waste my time. I only have 24 hours in a day. Do not waste my time. If you do, I'm going to quit. Third, it has to be fun. Leaders can't beat me up. They have to smile. They have to come up with fun activities. Because you know what? If it's not fun, I'm going to go find me something else that is fun. Because I'm not getting paid for this. And so my point is that you can get them in. But we run, as you said, we run so many off, or we have so many leave after a year. It can be for those three reasons I just listed, and it could be for several other reasons. But I will tell you, the number one reason people do it is because I like the people I'm doing it with. And, it's about marketing. It's about social activity. And that's not just about having parties and that sort of stuff. It's about sitting around the fire station, accepting people of different thought processes, accepting other people, and, letting them be a member and recognizing them and welcoming them. And, yep, they might look different, be different, but they're not different. They agree to be a member of your fire department. So those are the three things that I say about retention. You can knock on doors. You can get people convinced to join the fire department for a variety of reasons. But if you're not working harder on retention than you are recruitment, I think you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I agree 100% with you on that. I've said that for years, that retention is certainly one of the tougher challenges, and you outlined some great reasons there on why people are quitting. And, going along with that, you in many of your articles, you point out some great leadership traits about motivating and inspiring volunteers, and it's amazing how many people don't give a simple pat on the back or say thank you. That is so important. And even recognition programs, they can be good and bad. I have my own thoughts on what makes a good recognition program. Just my personal opinion from my experience is you have to be careful when you're doing top 10 awards or rewarding the top 10 responders at a banquet. In my personal experience, a lot of times it's retirees. It's people that work in a township that allows them to go while they're working. And that, to me, sometimes is demotivating to the firefighter who's got a spouse working and he's trying to work two jobs to make ends meet. And at the banquet, he could feel a little slighted. So, what are your takes on recognition programs? I know there's certainly some good ideas and good programs out there, and I'd like to hear from you what you think a good volunteer recognition program encompasses.
Yeah, it's a diverse set of things. I'm not sure I know all the different successful programs, but I will tell you, recognizing the highest run attendance is going to be a single guy or a retiree. So you've already excluded other people. The highest training attendance, you automatically exclude some other people. So, you got to look at how do we create a program that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to participate in. I'm not saying you don't recognize the highest run attendance, but if you do the highest run attendance, the highest training attendance, and Volunteer of the Year award, what about the mediocre? What about the mid-level performer? How do you recognize them? Now, I will tell you, not everybody deserves an award. I've been to banquets where I swear the fire chief was walking around handing out the certificates of appreciation to every member on the fire department. That is not motivational. So look at your program and make sure that you're providing an opportunity to recognize the diversity in your membership, and make sure that you get the mid-level performers who get some recognition. That we're going to recognize Jim Johnson. Jim Johnson has a job in which he works 40 hours a week. He works about an hour from here. He's gone 60 hours a week, but he made 27% of the fire calls this year. And and another guy made 47 hours of training this year. He's married. He's got 3 kids. They're involved in sports, but he makes that extra effort. Wow. Think about that guy. You recognize that guy. What do you think that does to that, I'll say, mid-level performer? I will tell you what it does. It makes him feel proud. And you're going to get something, you're going to get a little bit more out of that guy this coming year. No doubt in my mind. Again, not 100% of the people, 80% of the people. So look at those programs. I'm not saying to recognize the lowest performer. That I don't think that's appropriate. But there are mid-level performers who are making a sacrifice. It's not always about numbers. It's about quality, not necessarily quantity.
Yeah, fair and equitable is a very important part of it as well. And because I've been to banquets and I've seen the faces when sometimes the person getting the award, other people are like, I had absolutely no prayer for that because extenuating circumstances, but I'm still making above the minimum and doing and it can be demotivating. So fair and equitable, so important.
Yeah, you use that word fair. It's such an appropriate word here. What's fair?
Yeah.
It's sort of like to start with the question why. Ask yourself, is it fair to only give out highest training attendance, highest run attendance, and a Volunteer of the Year? Because we look at the people who are winning that and go, well, it's only these kind of people. And, is it fair? Yep, great.
Yeah. And I think if you have certain programs, you can't do one and done in most cases because people are like, well, I didn't get this, and he got it last year for doing the same thing I did. It can be dicey, but when done appropriately, boy, they can be motivating and something that's looked forward to at the banquet every year, and they don't even have to be at the banquet. You can do them at your business meeting in some cases. So some good thought should go into them.
I think a big component of our retention program is the appreciation that we need to be showing to our firefighters, whether it's on the scene, whether it's at training, whether it's just sweeping the floor at the fire station. Our leadership has got to understand that is so important that our people, our leaders show appreciation to those volunteers. And it's not just volunteers. Leaders need to show appreciation to our staff. Whether they're paid or whether they're not paid, doesn't matter. Appreciation, being paid is your right. If you're a paid firefighter, it's your right. By law, we have to pay you every week or every 2 weeks. And appreciation is not a law, but appreciation is what motivates people to do more. Paycheck motivates them to show up, but it doesn't motivate them to do more.
Yeah, Yeah. Chief, so much. Just passing on so much great. I have pages of notes. My Twitter's lighting up. My email, people with questions. And I'm going to delve into an area here that doesn't. It's getting more focus. It's not a sexy area at all. But you're to be commended for your work on the behavioral health side of our service.
Oh, thank you.
And I know VCOS, they did a yellow ribbon report regarding a proactive approach to ensuring mental wellness of your members. And I really want to commend you for writing about this, bringing it to the forefront, because it is a very real and a very prevalent issue today. And in the past, it came with a stigma that we just ignored mental health or attached negative stigmas to people experiencing health problems in that regard. And you've written about it, been on this yellow part of the Yellow Ribbon Report. And what are we learning, and what can we do in our volunteer fire service to help the brothers and sisters and be proactive when it comes to behavioral health?
Well, this is in the job description as other duties as assigned. And this is a new assignment. It's not one of the tasks. Most officers haven't been trained for it. But it is to be sensitive to our needs, our personal needs, and our members' needs. And sensitivity is something we as firefighters are not very good at. The suck-it-up buttercup attitude is way past tense. It's no longer acceptable. We see things that normal human beings are not supposed to see. We look at our military and we look at the number of suicides that our military has. They're not doing a very good job of managing this also. But we have to recognize when we see something bad that we need help. We have to accept, but so many of us still say, I don't need help. You ask the question, how you doing? And what does everybody say? I'm doing fine.
Good.
Yeah. If you ask the question, how are you processing that response we made last Thursday afternoon? There may be a pause there because they're thinking. Because the way they'll answer that question is, well, I guess I'm not processing it very well because I still have trouble sleeping. Or, that run didn't bother me. But the point is, you get more conversation out of that kind of question than, or how you doing?
Yeah.
Also, how you doing is asked of us all the time, and our natural reaction is doing fine. I'm doing good. No. And we have to sit down and have conversations. We need to make sure our spouses are aware of situations. If you're, I guess I'll make a plug here, but not necessarily. But it's like if you're using I Am Responding as a product that help to let you know when volunteers are available, make sure your spouses are involved in that as well. Maybe they need to get those text messages so when they see when there's a motor vehicle accident and they see when there's extrication, because the guy or gal may come home and not share that with them. And that spouse needs to realize that, if Jane came home and Jane started getting moody, she wanted to fight a lot, maybe it was that run they made last night. Or if Jimmy comes home and, he's reclusive, he goes in a basement or he goes into his man cave and doesn't have any interaction with the family, then again, somebody needs to say something. Now, somebody needs to do something. I shouldn't say something. They need to do something. And I've had friends right after the Yellow Ribbon Report came out. I've had it's like people call me up and tell me, "Yep, that's me." Like, wow. I had a guy talk to me. We'd been on the phone for 17 minutes, and he used the word suicide 9 times. And I'm 220 miles away. And I said to him, I'll see you in about 3 hours. No, I don't. No. Yep, I will see you in about 3 hours. Best friend. Oh, yeah, he talks about that all the time. I said, he's going to do it. What do you mean? I said, I'm telling you, if he's talking about it, he's going to do it. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, but he's going to do it. So we had an intervention. I made it there, called his pastor. Pastor showed up. We had an intervention. About 9 months later, this guy calls me up and said, hey, you want to go to breakfast? I said, sure, I'll go to breakfast with you. And he thanked me. He thanked me. He said, I was not in this world. And he said, I don't know where I was going, but it probably wasn't a good place. And I thanked him for complimenting me. That was what I learned. That, he could have been mad at me for the rest of his life, but he would not have done something bad to himself, and I chose to ignore it. So when you look at this behavioral health issue, don't ignore it. You're in a career department, combination system, same deal. And the IFF has recognized that as well. That we need to be. They are taking care of their people. They have a new place in D.C. To help take care of their people who have these kind of issues, and because people who become suicidal think it's the easy way out. And it may be, but it's about what suicide does to you. And I had a guy named Mike Head, as I was at, not GD Ritzy's. I'm giving some plugs here. Oh, Denny's. I was at Denny's for breakfast one morning. I eat a lot of breakfast with a lot of people when I'm in town. But so we're eating breakfast. This guy walks out as I'm leaving. He goes, hey, are you John Buckman? I said, yeah. He says, I'm Mike Head. I said, Mike, oh, man, good to see you, blah, blah, blah. But here's my point. What I remembered, I had not seen him in maybe 40 years. We used to live next to each other when we were growing up till about age 10. What I remembered was his father, who was a police officer, committed suicide in his garage. That was the first thing that came into my head. So suicide, to the person who's going to commit suicide, may believe it's the easy way out and it's the safer way out. But it's what it does to those people who are still around us. So I'm telling people, I'm going to make you mad. I'm going to make you confront your demons. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to treat you, but I'm going to make you confront your demon and hope you make the decision to go get you some help, because we need professional help.
Yeah, what a testament to you as a leader and as a human being, and wow, what a powerful story to help that gentleman out. And then you're right, the impact even 40 years later of something like that terrible tragedy happening. And you're right, it's not in the job description, but boy, it can catch anyone off guard when you start seeing that behavior or hearing about it. And so you got to have a plan. And fortunately, there's a lot of resources out there today that, at least as fire service professionals, we should be aware of in case we witness some of these things or even have issues ourselves. There's a lot of help out there, isn't there, Chief?
Yeah, there are. The three big insurance companies that insure most of volunteer fire departments, ESIP, Provident, and VFIS. They have coverage in your policies to pay for professional counseling. They have coverage in your policy to pay for critical incident stress debriefing processes and things like that. I had, near the end of my tenure, we had a guy set his house on fire with his soon-to-be 2 stepkids in it. And he set these kids on fire. He didn't just set his house on fire. He set the kids on fire in a very, very, very bad way. I won't even say what it was. He's now on death row. And wow. I had 2 volunteers in counseling for a year dealing with that issue. The only person that knows those two names are myself and our insurance company, who paid the bill for a year for them to go to counseling. And one of them is still a member of our department. One is now an assistant chief of another volunteer fire department. if it wouldn't have been for that counseling, they wouldn't have stuck around.
Wow. And it's very real. It's very real.
It is.
And again, as I said earlier, and I think you'd agree, it's not the sexy side of our fire service, but it's a very real side that needs to be acknowledged. The bury the head in the sand attitude of years gone by, or tough it up, kid, it's what we do, is not the way professionals handle it. And we should be there to help the brother and sisters when they need it, and be aware of the signs, and have access to the resources and knowledge of the resources that are out there. And
yeah, we
Chief,
have to learn how to take better care of our people.
Yes, in so many ways. It can be on the leadership front, motivating front, training front, and certainly on the behavioral health front as well. So true. And Chief, we are a good hour and a half into the show now and going on, and I do have one or two last-minute things I want to go over with you, but I want to just give the chance, and just in case there's anyone out there that's been a little timid on making a phone call, give you one last chance here if you want to call in. If you have any questions for the Chief, highly encourage you to do it. You can hear from tonight's show about just how much great information he can provide and advice he can provide. So please, again, that number 760-454-8852. We'd love to hear from you. I can guarantee you that the Chief won't yell at you, and would be willing to try and help answer your question. But if nobody has any questions, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about something that I know is near and dear to you. Maybe explain to our listeners what it's all about. And that's the VCOS, or the Volunteer and Combination Officers section of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, a great organization providing great resources, especially for those managing volunteers in a volunteer or combination department. They run a great symposium every year in November down in beautiful Florida. I believe it's called Fun in the Sun, or Symposium in the Sun, I believe. Yep. So, Chief, if you wouldn't mind talking about that, I thought you might enjoy having some time to maybe educate our listeners a little bit about it.
Well, thank you. We also have the symposium in the West now, also in May. So, but there are two national organizations, the National Volunteer Fire Council and the Volunteer and Combination Officer section, and both of them. And I mentioned NVFC. Never been an officer, but I've been to many meetings. They did recognize me for my contributions a couple years ago for, just getting owed. I jokingly tell them that. But both of these organizations are producing documents to help leaders of volunteer staffed organizations. And I just did an interview with Chief Quinn, who's the chairman, and Jeff Cash, who's the vice chair of the NVFC. And I told them, you guys have got some really great documents out there. The VCOS, which is part of the International Association of Fire Chiefs, has their ribbon reports. I mean, we started out with a blue ribbon report. We got white, we got red, we got yellow, we got silver, we got lavender that now come out. We have yellow ribbon report. And so both of these organizations have great resources to help you. Yes, I'm prejudiced, or maybe a little prevalent, or maybe lean a little more prevalent to the VCOS, but as me talking about the NVFC, again, they have great stuff. And my point is, get the stuff. It's free. You download it off the website, nvfc.org or vcos.org, and read it and use it where applicable. The VCOS also has educational programs that we would actually come out and deliver education courses to you, to your fire department, to your neighboring, or to your regional district. We don't want to do it for one fire department unless you're going to fill up put 50 people in a seat. But, and then the NVFC does a lot of webinars, but they both are doing such great work. And we are getting along better today than we've ever gotten along. The Lavender Ribbon Report, which is about cancer prevention, is the first not collusion, don't want to use that word, first partnering between the both organizations, where both logos are on the Lavender Ribbon Report, and again, great cooperation there. So but the VCOS, I was fortunate to help be one of the co-founders of that, But, I have never done anything by myself. My father told me years ago, it's not about me, it's about we. And I am able to do what I've been able to do because of my spouse, my kids, my fire department, and good friends like Fred Windisch, Bob Bettenhausen, Tim Wall, that have listened to me, and they still listen to me, and we still do things. I'm not an officer, not on the board of the VCOS, don't want to be on the board. Like I tell them, I don't need to be on the board, but give me projects and I'll do projects for you. And so I encourage everybody to go look at the VCOS.org website and the NVFC.org website. There are great resources there to help you lead your department in a positive, proactive way.
Good advice, and I know a little bit more about the NVS, National Volunteer Fire Council, because I was at a couple of their symposiums, and I certainly read about VCOS. It's been talked up highly to me when I've been at different conferences, and so just great resources. And we all, every one of us in the volunteer fire service can certainly use some additional resources and help. And my gosh, there is so much great information between those two organizations to help any aspiring volunteer fire officer, firefighter, and any member of a volunteer fire department. It's just a great, great organization. And Chief, can you give the website again for VCOS, which if people wanted to get more information on that?
It's VCOS.org, Volunteer and Combination Officer Section.org.
And the National Volunteer Fire Council, I know, is NVFC.org for anyone wanting to check that out as well. And again, great free information. I mentioned one at the beginning of the show about a upcoming webinar and virtual classroom that Chief Murphy is offering, and great information. And Chief, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on to my show tonight. We covered a lot of topics. I have even some more that we could get into, but I find an hour and a half is usually the limit for most people, and but that leaves the door open for a return engagement if you would be so kind down the road a little bit.
Absolutely. Be glad to do that.
I appreciate that. And a couple things before you go. What final words would you like to convey to our listeners out there about the importance of this fire service and taking it as a professional operation and looking in the mirror at your own personal role in the fire service? What would you like to leave our listeners with tonight?
Well, I guess the first thing would be is, using a quote from Chief Brunacini, be nice. Leaders need to be nice. From a standpoint, you set the standard. Don't let others set the standard. You set your personal standard for what you determine is professional. Professional, the way you look, the way you act, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you deal with other people. Don't let somebody denigrate you, ridicule you. Be the best that you can be.
Fantastic. And want to emphasize, too, just how proud you are to be in the fire service, and also, I know, the proud family man that you are as well, and the proud grandfather, and bring so much joy to your life. And thank you for everything you've done for us in the fire service and continue to do. And I'd be remiss if I didn't review a tweet I got recently, today, when I tweeted out about the show. I believe he'd be considered a friend of yours, Brian Kazmerzak. He wanted me to ask you about the headaches over the years. Brian Kazmerzak, of course, Chief Officer in Indiana, first Vice President of International Society of Fire Service Instructors, and runs the secret list and firefighter close calls with Chief Goldfeder. But he tweeted to me to ask you about the headaches that I guess you've endured with him over the years, or maybe you've given him or he's given you. I'm not sure what he meant by that.
You see, the thing about Brian and others that I've interacted with gives me energy. And so again, I'm going to go back. Conflict is normal. Accept that you're going to not always agree, but don't make it personal. And Brian and I have had some great conversations, and it gives me energy. It motivates me to do better things. And so, Brian has told me, we've talked about that several times. Brian's a great leader, and I didn't say this, but I do posters for firefighterclosecalls.com. So if you go to the firefighterclosecalls.com, you scroll down, go to the posters. I do motivational posters for them as well. So because Billy Goldfeder has been a good friend of mine since about 1988. And but yes, you're going to have conflict with people. Don't make it personal. Let's argue about the issue. Let's argue about the emotion out of it, and we'll all be better off for it.
Mhm. Just so much more great advice from the great Chief John Buckman III. And Chief, if there's people out there that do want to contact you, they have some questions, they just didn't want to call in tonight, or they're listening to this down the road and think of some things they want to ask you, or maybe have you bring a presentation to them or talk to them, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Chief?
Well, thanks, Tom. And yes, I would love to do a presentation. I'm back on the road, so to speak. I've basically been off the road for like 15 years because when I started the state fire training system here in Indiana, we started it. There was not a system. Governor Daniels, I wrote the white paper for him, and he said, go do it. And we gathered people together, created a coalition of people, and created it. So I might travel out 3 or 4 times a year, but now I'm back out there. I'd love to come and speak to you. Get a hold of me at 812-480-4339 or John M. Buckman III@me.com is my email address. Or you can go to Wildfire Studios and look at my website. And would love to hear from people. I love the debate. It's how articles get created. Also, I'm sure, Tom, you get energy off of those people as well, and it helps create articles. My guys at German used to go, I know when we ticked you off when you wrote that article. They would do something dumb or stupid, and 6 months later it'd come out in fire engineering, and they'd go, yep, I remember that. So,
it can be a great
I'd love to hear.
It can be a great way to vent, that's for sure. It can be a great way to vent, putting it in a nice article together on something. Absolutely.
Right. Oh yeah.
Such a great episode tonight, Chief. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share all these great lessons and great leadership points and attributes, and so much great information here this evening that I know will be listened to time and time again by our listeners. So thank you so very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it. It was fun.
Great. I look forward to seeing you down the road, and if not sooner, I'll see you at the great FDIC in April.
Yes, we will. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And folks, so much information, pages of notes, so much information, people blinging me on email and Facebook and messages about the information they took from the show tonight. Remember some of the key points. Surround yourself with great family. Don't forget that family is so important to supporting you in your role as a professional firefighter. Remember, you set the standard. Ask yourself the question, do you want to belong to the brotherhood and sisterhood or to this T-shirt club? Remember, it's all about performance. Lead by example. Remember, you're being watched. What you say, how you dress, how you interact with people, how you treat people is so important, whether you're a leader or a firefighter, because firefighters can be leaders as well. Understand that your team of firefighters has all education levels, all age groups, all types of people that make up society. Be happy with the 80% that are contributing. Catch them doing good things and celebrate successes. Remember, you get what you ask for. Conflict is normal in any organization, except that the key is to have both sides discuss things not emotionally, but to qualify and quantify the situation, the problem, and talk about facts. Understand how important training is to an organization. And the last thing you want members saying is training sucks. Members want good hands-on training. It's not about what the instructor needs. Training is about what the students need. Retention is so important in the volunteer fire service. We focus a lot on recruitment, but what are we doing with our firefighters when we get them? Let's not waste their time. Let's make it fun. Let's smile and have a fun-filled organization as we embrace the seriousness of it as well. Understand behavioral health issues are very real. We can't bury our head in the sand. Understand the resources that are out there to help all of us deal with situations when it comes to behavioral health. Understand our recognition programs need to be fair and equitable. And don't forget to treat those that perform at mid-level as well. And this is a hard one to remember. Be nice. And I say that, of course, kiddingly. But can we all just be nice in this mean-spirited world we live in today? Let's not let our fire service be mean. Let's relish our brotherhood, our sisterhood. Let's relish being together in the firehouse and try and deliver professional performance at all levels of our organization, firematically, administratively. And if you're a past member, exempt member, you too can help with the professional equation in whatever role you play in your firehouse. And that's going to do it for this evening. My next show, I don't have the exact date yet. I'm assuming it'll be back to a Tuesday night in October. Again, I would like to thank Chief Doug Klein for helping me and swapping out his show for this evening. And his great show, Fire and Training, will air next Tuesday, August 28th. So please give that a listen. Start making plans now for attending the greatest fire conference in the world at FDIC in 2019, which is April 8th through the 13th. I promise you, and Chief Buckman promises you, you won't be disappointed. Remember the scholarship opportunities that are available. And we thank our great friends at DuPont for making that possible. And FDIC.com has information on it, fireengineering.com, as well as Fire Scholarship, FDICFireScholarship.com. Information is there for everybody to find information on the scholarships, again, sponsored by DuPont and Honeywell. We thank them very much. If anyone would like to reach out to me again, please give my Facebook page a like, the Professional Volunteer Fire Department. I'm on Twitter. Contact me at tamerrill63@AOL.com. Yes, AOL, my kids laugh at me, but I didn't want to change my address this late in the game. And last but not least, as I do on every show, shout out of the month. To the beautiful state of Kansas, I would like to recognize and I hope I say it correctly, the Galena Fire Department from Galena, Kansas. And their member, Katie Marie Stapleton, who at 18 years of age has changed the course of history in that volunteer fire department by becoming the first volunteer firefighter to serve. The department was established back in 1877. She's always dreamed of following in her family's footsteps, as so many volunteers do, don't they? And she is now doing that. She's serving alongside her father, who's a lieutenant. Her older brother's also in the department. She lives in the apartment building connected to the fire station, and she says she grew up around the firehouse and wanted nothing more than to be a member of that department. And in this day and age, that is a great testament to the volunteer fire service opening its doors, embracing diversity, embracing male and female members, and we'd like to recognize and say nice job, Galena Fire Department in Galena, Kansas, and to firefighter Katie Marie Stapleton. Katie Marie, welcome to the brotherhood and sisterhood of the great fire service. Thank you, everybody, for listening in tonight, wherever you happen to be. Please stay safe, and please remember that developing, maintaining, and upholding a professional reputation is the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, whether paid or volunteer. Thanks again to Chief Buckman. Good night, folks.